Okay, Mr. President, welcome to the Delphi Economic Forum. It's really nice to see you. Your many friends in Greece wanted to actually see you in Athens, but it's good to see you from far away anyway.
I would have to be in Athens because Athens is one of my favorite cities, not only in Europe but in the world. And I have so many friends in Greece that I'm more than very sad not to be able to meet them physically. But I'm sending my best greetings to all my friends.
Well, we hope to see you later in the summer. But let me ask, first of all, the pandemic has really shaken up the European Union in many ways, political ways, social ways, health-wise, and all this. How do you think the pandemic is really going to change the EU?
I think that the pandemic has shown, given the national reactions to the first stage of the pandemic, that there's no other way in Europe than to act together. At the very beginning of the pandemic crisis, member states were acting, each and every one cooking its pandemic soup in its own form. This was due to the fact that the European Union doesn't have real competencies in the public health sector, nor does the European Commission. But in the course of the first stage of the pandemic, it became more and obvious that these national solos, when it came to the reactions to the pandemic crisis, were not the right way to tackle the crisis. So I think that now things are clear. We need, as the European Union, more competencies when it comes to the health sector, mainly when it comes to pandemics like the one we are experiencing for the time being. It's not a surprise that the European Union was not surprised to this tremendous crisis. During the so-called European Convention leading to the European Constitution, some governments, including mine, because I was the Prime Minister at that time, were requesting more competencies in that vital sector, the lead one can say. A majority of member states rejected that idea and that ambition. And so we experienced at the very beginning of the pandemic that Europe was not really existing in the eyes of the European public. Things have improved and the European Union is doing better, mainly when it comes to the vaccination.
Now, there was a lot of talk during these past few months about the lack of leadership on behalf of the European Union. Do you share this criticism?
I didn't get your question. I didn't get your question.
There was a lot of criticism in the past few months that there was no effective leadership on the part of the EU. Do you share this?
As I was explaining just a few minutes ago, the initial reaction of the Union was not, European Union was not a high located performance, but improved since then. But I will not join those in a sometimes polemic way. The actions of the European Commission. The European Commission was trying to do its best, and it did do its best. But I'm repeating myself by saying that the European Union needs more competencies in the public health sector.
Now, a lot of people thought that Donald Trump, was going to be a wake-up call for Europe. That Europe will do more to take care of its defenses, security, and so on. This didn't really happen. What did Trump leave behind him in terms of European awakeness, let's say?
I would like to say that during the Trump time, the European Union and the member states of the European Union were discovering one obvious fact that we can no longer, how could I say, trust the Americans to take care of our own security in Europe. So we put into place a semi-strategy as far as defense is concerned. We were launching the European Defense Fund. We were signing with NATO, with the Secretary General of NATO, a memorandum saying that there should be a division of work between the European Union and NATO, without saying that the European Union should have as an ambition to replace NATO. Since Trump has left, the transatlantic relations have enormously improved because the European Union is no longer considered by the US administration as being a kind of non-ally, but as a real ally, as it was and should be in the past and for the next coming decades. Things have improved, but we should not consider that we could come back to the old world, because the European Union has to take on its own shoulders a part of the responsibility when it comes to defense. But never should there be a division line between the European Union and the US. We are allies, and we have to behave as allies. We always did, but the US administration did not. But now things have improved when it comes to the transatlantic relation and the improving of those.
Now, I cannot resist to ask you, but Donald Trump used to say that the only European leader he liked was you, and that he could somehow deal with you. So I wonder, how was that dealing, on a personal level? How was it, dealing with President Trump? Was it a challenge?
It was, of course, a challenge. And when I went to Washington, I think in July 18, I made sure that he would better understand what the European Union is about. Mainly that the European Union is not an invention of the Europeans against the United States of America, but that we have to act together. As a gift, I brought to Washington, handing it over to Donald Trump, a picture of the grave of General Patton, who is buried in Luxembourg. And I was signing this photo by saying that, dear Donald, don't forget that we have a common history. I think that Donald Trump never understood what the European Union is about. It's not something against the US. It's the effort of the European Union to be in charge of the global stability together with the United States of America. I made it very clear to Donald Trump when it comes to trade. The Commission, and thus its president, is in charge of international trade and of international trade relations. National governments are not. They are contributing to this effort to make the trade relations between Europe and the rest of the globe being a coherent body, but it's the Commission which is in charge. Prime ministers going to Washington very often were given the impression that they have the say. They don't have the say when it comes to trade-related questions. And so I was explaining to Donald Trump that he should speak to me, not to me only, but mainly to me as a president of the Commission. And by the end of the day, he understood that message, although he was thinking that the European Commission's president would be an animal like himself, because by the very end of the meeting, I said to him, I have to go to the airport because I have to take my plane. He said to me, "You can't delay your plane." I said, "I have a commercial flight." He never understood that the President of the Commission had to take a commercial flight. The President of the Commission doesn't have an Air Force One-like plane.
Now, the big challenge for the West right now is dealing mainly with China and to some extent with Russia. There was an agreement signed between the EU and China right before President Biden took the oath. Do you think this was the right decision? Was it a mistake? What's your opinion?
I do think, with all respect, that this was to some extent a too hasty decision, because the political relations between the Popular Republic of China and the European Union were not very clear, because we have tremendous divergences with China when it comes to human rights. Of course, I was always pointing the finger to the weakness of the human rights performance in China when discussing with President Xi and the Prime Minister of China. But it's not only about that. It has also to be taken into consideration that when it comes to trade relations and to commercial relations between China and the European Union, we should not be too naive. I remember perfectly well my last meeting with President Xi, when I was telling him that, of course, we are trade partners, but nevertheless we are rivals and we are competitors, and that we should not be, and that we are no longer willing to be naive, because the Chinese companies, even those state companies have been subsidized by the Chinese state, they have a free access to the internal market of Europe, whereas European companies did never have a free access to this enormous internal market of China. So we put into place, during my mandate, an investment screening aimed to say stop to Chinese and other investments touching in a deeper way the European strategic interest. With China, we were too naive. We were too naive because, we have to admit this, our business community over years, if not decades, were pushing us to enter relations with China, giving some advantages to China. Later on, these companies, and I have discussed with them both in Beijing and in Brussels, they were slowly but surely admitting that we were too naive when it came to our trade relations with China. These things have improved as far as the European attitude towards China is concerned.
How about dealing with Russia? You've dealt with President Putin a lot yourself. You know him well. Where are relations with Europe going, you think?
Putin for decades, and I had, I must say, a rather good relation with Putin, because I was very often meeting him one-to-one, because we didn't need interpretation, because he is perfectly fluent in German, so we could discuss under four eyes the problems existing both between Russia and Europe, and existing in Russia too, because we have to learn what the level of difficulties and the amount of difficulties President Putin is facing in Russia is about. I do think that we need, how could I say, to reconnect with Russia, because there is no security map of Europe without Russia. Russia is our neighbor. We cannot change the geography. Geography is there. Politics is the mixture between demography and geography, and so we have to take these two elements into consideration. Of course, we have a major divergence, if not opposition, with Russia, because Russia in 2014 stop to respect the international law by annexing Crimea, by creating unnecessary troubles in the eastern part of Ukraine, and we have to maintain our strong and violent opposition to this behavior of Russia. But apart the divergences we have with Russia, we have to rediscover common intersections with Russia in different fields, culture, trade to some extent, and we should build on that in order to normalize our relations with Russia without giving up our main principles when it comes to the respect of international law.
Now, I want to ask you about Turkey. Turkey and Erdogan have changed a lot in the last 20 years. Do you think that Erdogan used Europe and its support in order to get rid of the power of the army and so on, and then sort of uncovered his real agenda? Or you think he has generally changed over the years?
I know Erdogan for many years, if not decades, for decades, yes. And I have to subdivide his approach to international relations in two periods. At the very beginning of his prime ministership, he was open-minded and very oriented towards the European Union. And he was introducing inside Turkey a certain number of reforms we were expecting for years, and they were never taken by the then Turkish non-AKP authorities before Erdogan came to power. I concluded together with others this refugee deal with Turkey, which was more than very helpful when it comes to Europe, but then suddenly, and that's the second period of his attitude towards Europe, he was stepping away from the European ambition of Turkey, which was a process I didn't expect, and I did regret profoundly. I nevertheless continued to have regular exchanges with President Erdogan, but they became more and more difficult because he did not really admit that European Union as such and the President of the Commission, as far as he was concerned, had a unremoteable point of view when it came to Cyprus and to the ratification of the island of Cyprus. I invested a lot of time in the efforts to reunite or reunify the Cypriot island. I'm highly disappointed that I was not successful in that respect, and I was explaining my point of view to President Erdogan again and again. He didn't like my way of reasoning, but that was my way and the European way of reasoning, because Cyprus is a member of the European Union, and we have to stick to the Cypriot points of view, not to all the points of view, because sometimes we have to take a step into the direction of the Turkish community of Cyprus, but as a basis and as a principal basis, we are on the Cypriot side. And we did not accept the drillings in the Mediterranean. We did not accept the way Erdogan was dealing with Cyprus, nor did we accept, and are not accepting as we are now, the way he is envisaging the relations with Greece. Greece is a member of the European Union. Greece is part of the European history, if not a major part of the European history, because we have to accept happily, unfortunately, that Greece is influencing the the European way of life till today. And I did never like the way during the financial crisis some in the European Union, mainly in the German-speaking countries, were dealing with Greece because they were not respecting the dignity of the Greek nation and of the Greek people, because they didn't take a real interest in the conditions of life of the ordinary Greeks, because the ordinary Greek, the average Greece, was suffering during that financial crisis. And my motto always was to be helpful to Greece, to respect Greece, to ask Greece to undertake a certain number of reforms, which has been done in a way or another. And we have to applaud now the Greek recovery plan. It's because the Greek recovery plan is one of the best of all the member states of the European Union. It's a full-fledged recovery plan. It's a plan which aims at to modernize the Greek economic model and to divide the money coming from Europe in a way that structurally this will improve and enhance the growth potential of Greece. Greece is a great country and a big nation.
Mr. President, let me ask you, because at some point the history of Madam Merkel's governance is going to be written. I want to ask you, do you think there was a moment when she really thought that Greece did not belong to the EU or to the Eurozone, and she changed her mind at the last minute?
I don't know, although having spoken so many times on Greece with Angela Merkel, what her real and final attitude would be. But I have known during my time as Eurogroup president, later on as president of the Commission, that there were voices in Germany, mainly in the German parliament, wanting to exclude Greece from the euro area. I was always opposing that point of view because I considered that once out, you will never re-enter the euro area. And I made this perfectly clear to the German government and to its different representatives, including the then finance minister, Mr. Schäuble, who is a good friend of mine, by the way. And back in 2015, I was the president of the Commission. Germans and others told me that the salvation of Greece, the support to Greece, the keeping Greece inside the solidarity sphere of the euro area was not a matter for the Commission to deal with. That was a matter for the member states and for them only. I responded to that provocation in my eyes by saying that according to the treaty, the Commission is in charge of the general interest of the European Union, and it was in the general interest of the European Union to keep Greece as a member of the euro area, not to exclude Greece on a temporary basis from the euro area, which in fact would have meant that Greece would be excluded for decades. And so by the end of the day, Angela Merkel agreed to that position. But it was not an easy thing to be done.
Somebody who knows you well told me that the most dramatic moment in that episode was a phone call you made to Alexis Tsipras like a day or two before the Greek referendum. Do you remember that phone call?
I had so many phone calls with Alexis that I don't remember all of them because it was an ongoing process. I had him on the phone 3 times per week, and I was meeting him very often, as I had done with my good friend Samaras before, and as I have done with my good friend Mitsotakis. I'm greeting him. I had him on the phone yesterday to apologize for my absence in Greece right now. I had always good relations with the Greek prime minister because they were representing during all these negotiations their countries, so I had to respect the positions they will take. But I didn't like the idea of Alexis Tsipras to organize this referendum because this was misunderstood in Europe, because this was seen as a popular vote against the result of the negotiations we had conducted so far. Later on, after the referendum, I have to say, with all respect, that he changed his position because he was taking step by step an attitude narrower the differences between Greece and the European Union. Yes, I had friendly but always romantic relations with Alexis.
And the last question is, Angela Merkel is going to be gone in the fall. Who is going to be the true European leader after that? Macron seems to be in a lot of domestic trouble. Do you see anybody in the horizon who is going to take over as a strong leader in Europe?
I never liked the idea to consider someone as being the exclusive leader of the European Union. Things are not happening like that. Germany by its own cannot lead the European Union. Even together with France, the two of them cannot lead the European Union. They have not a monopoly of the leadership in Europe. The European Union is a by far more difficult, multifold construction. So you need also medium-sized member states and even small-sized member states. But without any doubt, Angela Merkel played a major role together with others, but bigger than others in Europe. And all the German chancellors I have known, Kohl, Schröder, Merkel, they were, when it came to the point, more pro-European than only nation-driven. And Angela Merkel very often made the choice to play the European card and not the national card, as did Schröder and as Kohl did as a principle. And the next German chancellor, whoever it will be, either Laschet or Scholz, they will behave in the very same sense. So don't be worried about Germany, but trust your real friends in Europe.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and hope to see you in Athens sometime soon. Thank you. It was nice talking to you.
Promised. Bye-bye. Bye.